Hi guys. We're just gonna get Christina in here.
Hi.
Hello.
It worked. Yay.
Oh, I know. It's always, I was just like starting this whole thing and it wouldn't connect. And I was like, oh, I hope we're not going to have
Uh,
technical difficulty here, but yay. It's so good to see you, Christina.
Yay. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I have been looking so forward to talking with you. So I'm sure this will be a really interesting live for all of the people tuning in and then catching this afterwards. So how was your Monday?
My Monday was actually great. It was good.
Did you work today?
I did. I had a really nice lady come in. We chatted for a little bit, and she was bilateral tattoos. And then after that, I ran around town and did errands. Adulting, not fun. But
okay.
yes.
The adulting, it's real.
Yes, it is real, and I hate it.
Feel you, girl. Okay, well, let's, I thought I'd just kind of give a little outline of what we're going to be talking about today. First off, I definitely want to introduce myself. We'll talk a bit about our stories, and there's so many cool things that I want to talk to you about and ask you about. So we'll get into that a little bit. And then lastly, if you guys have any questions while we're going through this, please fire away. Christina or I would be happy to not only address them now or after in the DMs. So shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Let me start off by introducing myself. My name is Jody Stoski. I work in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I have been doing paramedical tattooing since 2009. I have a strong focus on paramedical, probably about 50% of my business, the rest being cosmetic, and I absolutely love what I do. I think when you have that feeling about work, you just never really feel like you work a day in your life. And that's how I've always felt about my business in this industry. I love to teach people and encourage people to add paramedical tattooing into their business. I think this is a service that so many people are not offering or don't understand how to do it, don't feel confident. There's kind of a whole laundry list of things. And I think it is something that I just cannot emphasize is so powerful and life-changing. And so many people already have very close to almost the full skill set to do this, and they're just missing that last little bit of information. So I hope even just by us talking, it can encourage people to dig a little bit deeper into, what paramedical tattooing is and how it changes our clients' lives so much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Tell us all about you. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear all the things.
So I'm kind of a strange entity when it comes to paramedical tattooing, I feel like, because I kind of did things backwards from how most people do it. I feel like most people start out with cosmetic tattooing, or, maybe they did body art tattooing and then they segued into the paramedical world once they got contacted by somebody that had a need, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they learned about paramedical tattooing by someone. I started out different. I'm a registered nurse, and I used to work in a really busy plastic surgery practice in Ohio, and we did a lot of breast reconstruction. That was our primary focus of our practice. Just reconstruction in general. And in that setting, like many physician offices in the States and Canada and the UK, they have nurses and staff do paramedical tattooing, which is pretty outlandish, but it's very common.
It's scary.
Right? It's super big scary.
Yeah.
And it's so common, unfortunately, and it's accepted, and the results are also accepted, which is also not okay. So I started tattooing in the physician's office in 2008, and it wasn't until I left the medical, nursing world and started to devote my life to doing paramedical tattooing and trained with professional tattooers, that's when I learned that everything that I had been doing before was wrong. And so that's why I think I kind of have that dual perspective on it, because I have done it that way, and now I do it this way. So I went to dinner with a doctor here in town, and he discussed me doing tattoos for his patients. And I came home that night and I told my husband, hey, I think I want to quit my job. And he was like, what? And the idea was I wasn't going to be this doctor's employee. You know, I wasn't going to just work for his practice. He really wanted me to go get professional training, get all my credentials, and find a spot that was going to be a neutral place, like my own place, so I could offer tattooing to anybody in the community that needed it.
Yeah.
Because there, you know, he knew there was a need here. So that's exactly what I did. I started renting. He got my foot in the door at a cancer center here in town, and I went. We have a good friend of our family that owns a body tattoo shop here in town, and I went every day for training. It was very humbling. It was extremely it was extremely humbling, but great experience. It was great. It was like Tattoo 101. You know, I drew, he critiqued my drawings, he gave me a coil machine, he's like, learn these parts. Here's a power source, break this down, which I had tattooed with a Nouveau Contour in the physician's office.
Right.
And we carried like their line of inks, you know, and so it was just a very big, beautiful world that was opened up to me, and I loved it.
Completely.
And what's that?
It's just so completely different.
Totally. Oh my gosh. And then here comes all the guilt, right? Of, oh my gosh, I have, you know, because for almost 10 years, I did that type of tattooing. And I knew it wasn't right because I have body art tattoos. And I kept questioning, like, why are these tattoos looking the way they do? Why do they not last? Like, what is it that we're doing differently compared to the art I had on me that, and I didn't understand what it was until I actually went and did training. So I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that I'm where I'm at today, because I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. I still feel like a nurse, right? Deep down inside, I feel like a nurse, but I'm so glad I do this.
What a beautiful combination to have been in. I know all the different parts of nursing that you've done, and then turned out and come out the other side where you're at with areola tattooing.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest difference to tell PMUs that exists when it comes to body tattooing and areolas into the paramedical? I know I used to use a Nouveau Contour machine myself, and there's no way I could do an areola tattoo in this day and age with that machine. Like,
Absolutely.
It could probably look decent. I would like to say I could make it look decent, but that would be as far as I could go with that machine. And you know what? You're probably the same, but I think I spent $2,000 on that machine.
Oh, easily. And then the cartridges are more expensive.
Yeah.
The inks are very expensive, and it's just such a trap, you know. And the physicians that buy this equipment too, if you were working for the practice, it's kind of like a drug rep. You know, a drug rep will come to the door, they're selling the newest, greatest pill or shot or whatever, and the physicians, you know, they're not tattooers. And so they're told, hey, you can finish your breast patients right here in your office. It's so easy. Your office staff can do it. And the doctors are like, awesome. It's not a scalpel. How hard is it?
Yeah.
So they then they buy this big expensive package, and then they're kind of locked in. And it's unfortunate because instead of, you know, you can do a really great brush reconstruction and don't put a bad tattoo on top of it. That's a disservice, you know, for them.
I totally agree. Okay, I derailed us there. Tell me your biggest takeaways in the two different worlds. What would be like? Tell us all the things.
Okay, so the world of PMU cosmetics and difference into paramedical, those two worlds.
Like, I think you were doing areolas, I want to say kind of the PMU way, taught by Nouveau Contour-ish type of philosophies. Yeah. And then you moved over, you got the experience with a body tattooer, and then you bridged the gaps.
Yes.
or maybe you didn't even bridge a gap. You just simply moved over to the other side. I have done the same. And I know that just the needle cartridges in themselves, it's like what they tell you to use and how they're executing that is just, it's not even, megs are not even talked about. And
No,
so
they're not even, they don't exist.
exactly.
Yeah.
So tell us your biggest takeaways.
Okay, yeah. So I have a couple different things when I think about these two worlds colliding, right? So like you talk about the needle cartridges. They're great for linear strokes, eyeliners, eyebrow. You know, they're very small needles. They're super tightly configured and into a very, you know, small cartridge. So when you talk about surface area, you know, an areola, I mean, I've tattooed areolas that were like 7 centimeters in diameter. I've tattooed some big, giant areolas. So, I mean, right?
It's true.
So you, big breast, big nipple. So you can't expect to be able to use a really tightly configured needle and do the surface area. It's kind of like, I describe it as, if you're using like a 15 curved mag, that's like stepping on pea gravel. All of the energy is equally distributed through those 15 needles, less trauma, versus stepping on a sharp rock over and over and over and over again. And it's just, you go over the tissue over and over, and then you macerate the tissue, essentially. You tear it up, you bleed a lot, it causes a big inflammatory response. All of this plasma and stuff rushes to the system, kicks out your pigment. And then nurses, especially because they may or may not understand the integumentary system really, as like a PMU provider would, that she wipes, she doesn't see any take of the ink. Oh, okay, I'll go again. And she wipes again. Oh, well, maybe I need to press harder. Well, by that time, she's blown through the dermis. She's in the basement. She's scar tissue and bad stuff, and everything's bad. So it's kind of this perfect storm between, especially nurses and office staff. They're getting maybe 2 days of training. They've never touched a machine before. They don't know what they're doing. And then they're turned loose on a patient. There's kind of this see one, do one, teach one environment in the medical world. And you see it, like when I was a nurse in the ICU, you would see the residents come around, the interns, little interns on July 1st, and they have their books in their pocket, and somebody's coding, and they pull their books out, and they're looking through. And it's kind of like eat your young environment. And you can't do, these ladies, these breast cancer ladies deserve so much more than that. You cannot throw someone to the wolves with a PMU machine, with the wrong needles, the wrong ink, the wrong training, and expect this to be successful, and this woman did not come out scarred on the other side, emotionally and physically. So it's a very bad situation. The ink is also, in my professional opinion, the ink is not appropriate. The Nouveau Contour, the face inks that we used, they, you know, they're semi-permanent, and then that requires, they fade, and then that requires multiple touch-ups for these ladies on this fragile skin from an experienced technician. It's terrible. And I think probably the last thing would just be like the overall big picture. When you combine all that together, it's kind of like a triple threat bad storm. So yeah, so when I trained with the body art guys, they were appalled when I explained to them the techniques that I was shown, you know, these, I mean, you know, and they were just so upset, because when you think about them, they really hone their craft. They do a very long apprenticeship. They get taken under somebody's wings. They are, they live and eat and breathe nothing but tattooing for a very long time. And so it was very shocking for them. So they got me so far. And then RJ was like, look, the only nipples I tattoo are like little tiny baby nipples on like a pinup girl.
Yeah.
He's like, your ladies need something better than that. So I went to New York and I trained with a body art tattooer named TJ Dill, and she was amazing and was very much a mentor for me. That was in 2015. And then in 2017, I also furthered my training. I went down to Terry Lively's place in Texas.
Oh, I love
and
that.
I did, yeah, and I did ART certification. So I think it's great when you learn and you keep learning and you never stop learning, because that's going to be your key to providing ever changing, getting better all the time.
I agree.
For
I have to agree. Like, I think the training component is so important. And even if people have not the right skill set, I think today the education gets you over that hump and may not even take them down the road of what you and I experienced of just being like, we didn't even know. So,
right.
Kate, tell me, how did you get your nickname, the Nipple Fairy?
The Nipple Fairy. Okay, so it's kind of strange. So my brother does not have social media. He's an engineer. He's a very typical engineer, right? It's kind
I
of
am envious.
like
He doesn't have social media. Oh my God.
zero. He's so free. It's amazing. But he's kind of like, if you took Leonard and Sheldon and made them into one person, that's my brother.
Yeah.
Okay. So he comes up and we show him my Instagram and he's like, oh my God, you gift nipples back to people. You're like a nipple fairy. And there it was. My whole family was like, you're the Nipple Fairy, and it stuck. And so then I kind of jokingly started calling myself the Nipple Fairy around the office where I rent and at the cancer center. And lo and behold, now all of Columbus, Ohio calls me the Nipple Fairy. It's kind of cool.
What an amazing nickname. Tell me what it feels like when people receive this art on their breasts after going through a journey. Let's talk about that emotional side of what that does for them and even for us.
Oh, yeah, big. I tell people all the time, they're always like, oh, this must be such a gift you're giving. I'm like, oh no, I get a gift too.
Totally.
It's a two-way gifting of magic, that happens. And how beautiful is it? Because every single day when we do this tattooing, Jody, we watch a transformation happen right in front of our eyes, right? It is literally spectacular. I don't know if I necessarily have like the words to describe it, but it's a feeling. These ladies may come in and, kind of be shy. They don't want to put a gown on and they're kind of guarded. And when we look in the mirror and we participate together, about placement and balance and asymmetry and trying to trick the eye and things. And a lot of times you'll hear them say these words like, I feel broken.
Yeah.
I feel, and somehow, some way, these tattoos, these two circles really, really, really help with all of those feelings. And when they get up off the table and they look in the mirror, it's just joy. It's just overjoyed.
Yeah.
Somehow creating this Penn's triangle on someone's chest, it's beautiful and I love it.
I'm with you when you say you can't almost describe what that is. I always try and articulate that, and it's so true.
Yeah, it's so hard.
You've just in real life and in real time seen a transformation in not only like their body, but their confidence, their self-esteem, just how they then stood up in the mirror versus before.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're not sheltered and diverting their eyes anymore. And I tell them, hey, you may have avoided that mirror before. Your eyes may have really tried to avoid this mirror. When you go home, you are never going to stare at your boobs longer than you will this evening. You are going to go home and you are going to stare. And they do, and it's great, right?
Oh, totally.
So it is.
Tell me more about your podcast.
Okay, my podcast. That's super new. Okay. So during COVID, I, had a lot of time on our hands, right? We were shut down.
Yeah.
So I wrote probably 15 blogs and had all these ideas. And I'm very awkward and shy. And I'm just a strange creature. I make fun of my brother, right? But I'm just as weird as he is. I'm just more vocal. But it was really hard for me to start. So the podcast is basically, I call it the Nipple Fairy podcast.
Yep.
And the goal of my podcast isn't so much to educate the PMU world because I'm not a trainer such as you, right? So I feel like the trainers, kind of have that focus versus I wanted to focus more on talking to the ladies more, trying to get education out to help them be able to make a decision regarding their own body.
Yeah.
Back in 2008, when I worked at the doctor's office, there was really no question of the the line that the ladies were going to go down for their breast reconstruction, right? The doctor would say, okay, well, now next we're going to do your nipple reconstruction. And we were very dependent upon that because we didn't have any 3D skills, right? Nobody taught us color theory. Nobody taught us drawing, art. Like, nurses are great people, but they might not be able to draw a hangman.
Well, and I say, it's like getting your accountant to do your tattoo. Like I wouldn't ask a tattooer to do my accounting, but yet we seem to make that transition really easily in the tattoo world, which I know is so frustrating when you do take the time and you're invested, you are proud, you do the education, and it is art, and I think people like you and I, we're passionate about it. And I think the giving back, helping factor is everybody wants to do that. So I can appreciate where that comes from, but you have to educate. The education is a big part of it.
Yeah. And I'm not sure really when the thought occurred to me. I just know I kept asking for better equipment, better training, better. And I kept getting shot down, not by the physicians I worked for, but by like the academic, the administrator people who were not medical, but yet they made all the clinical decisions,
right,
which is insane. But they just kept shooting us down. And finally it took me getting to that breaking point where I walked away from my 401k, my job security, my health insurance, and all of that to do something that was in my heart. And I'm so glad every day that I did. But my podcast is to kind of help those ladies who are in the doctor's office and the doctor's like, okay, well, maybe he might say this. Well, your breast reconstruction's done. Now you're done. So he doesn't even offer her a tattoo. So that's common. I can't believe it's common, but it still is common.
Yeah.
Or he can say, oh, Susie that checked you in at the front desk, she can do your tattoo next Thursday. Or, my nurse that did your tissue expander fills and your drain pulls, oh, she can do your tattoo as well. So, and it's to kind of help those ladies who may not know there's something else out there because they deserve something better. And so that's the focus of my podcast, is to kind of just give them information, to arm them with questions to ask. No matter who their artist is that they're looking to go to, that they'll have kind of a little arsenal to dip into to make an education decision. And then also to just kind of give them a heads up about what may be involved in their community and they just don't know about it because they're not being told.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I loved when I was reading about you, Christina, was your philosophy. Tell us about your philosophy.
Yeah. So my philosophy on my website, I back in 2015 when I first started, I was really struggling with my name of my business. I could not, it was very hard for me to just, again, verbalize like what I wanted to have as my business. And so I went with Living Story Tattoo because, as you know, when you're tattooing somebody, they tell you their story.
Oh, 100%.
And it's such a privilege. And it was a toss-up between Living Story Tattoo and then there's this idea of kintsugi. So my mother-in-law is from South Korea, and she has beautiful ceramics in her home that are joined together with like a golden resin. Mm-hmm. And that came originally from Japan. Japan occupied Korea, like in the 1500s, and then really up until like the 1940s, Korea was a Japanese domain. So but originally it started from Japan. And the idea behind that is if you break a piece of ceramic or pottery, instead of just saying, okay, well, this is useless now, it's broken, it has no value, and throwing it away, they don't. They take they take the piece and they fix it with this golden resin. So it ends up ultimately becoming stronger structurally than it was before, and it's more beautiful now. It's got gold in the fillings, and they're not trying to hide the cracks, like we do with super glue and get everything perfect together and all that. They celebrate this piece because now it has more value than before, and it has more beauty than before, and that spoke to me big time because that's what these ladies, it's kind of like a symbolic this piece can kind of symbolize their journey. Their scar could kind of be like the crack in the pottery, but they're not useless. They're not ugly. They're not broken. They have value and they're beautiful and they should feel that way. So the whole idea just was perfect. And I love it. And I almost hadn't put that together until a friend of ours who was in the military and had spent some time in Japan, he brought it up and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to take this and run with it. And I wrote that big page on my website.
It honestly, it gave me goosebumps when I read it. And I literally, I don't know if you guys can see, I literally have goosebumps. That is so amazing. And it is so incredible how that story weaves into what you do, what I do. You're basically, you're celebrating those scars that have a story and you're incorporating them into something that is new for this woman. And I will have to say, and I'm sure you agree with this too, is like some scars serve a purpose to be camouflaged and others serve a purpose to be celebrated and made into the gold, you know? And I think it's so cool that as paramedical tattooers that you can not only pick one or the other, but give the woman a choice in what she says and not just be dictated by what a physician would say, like, hey, this is what you need to do, or this is what you're going to do. And yeah, I absolutely love it. It is actually one of the coolest things I have heard in paramedical to date is you incorporating that philosophy into it. I absolutely love it.
Well, thanks. I love it too. And just, you know, and of course, like I'm surrounded by all things Asia. My husband's Asian, my kids are Asian. Like, so it just kind of felt like when I went to my mother-in-law's and I saw these pieces in her cabinet, I thought, oh my gosh, like that could have easily landed in the trash. This little teacup, somebody could have thrown this right away and never gave it another thought. But they took the time and the love and they molded this back into something that was functional again and beautiful. And that's the whole idea, right? And even if we don't do anything with their scars, let's say they're not asking for any scar camouflage, they're not asking, you know, they're not going to pursue any like decorative tattooing or anything over their scars. If their scars bother them, the nipple tattoo specifically can give them a new focal point on the breast to draw the eye away from what they feel is undesirable. Yeah. Or sometimes maybe it doesn't completely draw the eye, but it will kind of give a little balance between what they don't like and what they now do like. Yeah. So it is a really great feeling. I cry a lot too. Like when they get overwhelmed and they cry, I'm such a baby. I big cry.
I know. I would leave all the time and just either being emotional at work or like just coming home and being extra emotional. So I'll encourage you guys, anyone who's tuned in, please ask us any questions. Otherwise, Christina, your business model is doing areolas.
Yeah, I tattoo 5 days a week and I do predominantly areola work. I've been trained in PMU. I do brows and things, but 99.9% of the time when I answer a phone call, it is somebody wanting a nipple. And I think because the way I started my business with my nursing background, working at Ohio State, the residents come through the residency program, they graduated, they may filter out into the community, or because many of the community physicians pass through OSU, like maybe when I was a nurse in the burn unit. Yeah. Yeah. So I know so many of them. And then they talk to the surgical oncologist. One surgical oncologist that does a mastectomy, she might work with 4 or 5 plastic surgeons. So that one person that gets to know your work, when they're working back and forth on the table, they talk to each other. So, and you've got to think the surgical oncologist too, when the ladies go back for their breast surveillance every year to get their cancer checked, then they're getting seen. And if they have an unsightly tattoo, a lot of times they'll pass my card out and say, hey, if you're not happy with your tattoo, go see Chrissy. So it's really building a community. I have about, if you count plastic surgeons and surgeon mastectomy physicians, I probably have right about 30, maybe 35 physicians in Central Ohio and beyond that refer their patients to me.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so I'm very blessed for that, 100%.
And do people travel to see you, or is it mostly local? Like you've got a great business going there, and that's all you need?
People do travel. Like the lady today, she came from Canton, which is about 2 hours away. I do quite a few people from Indiana, a few from Michigan, a few from New York, Kentucky. It kind of, I have a friend of mine, actually, great. She's a physician out in California, and Lisa, I saw her on here earlier. She has sent me about 5 different people because, you know, California for a while was shut down.
Yeah.
They couldn't work. We were open, and she really loves my work. And one of these days, Lisa Kim, I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to come out and tattoo in your office. I don't know when it's going to happen, but
it's happening.
Yeah.
Do you work on, I did see a couple in your feed, gender affirmation surgeries?
Yeah. I've done quite a few of the top surgeries, and I have also, in the community, physicians are starting to do more of the bottom surgeries as well. Yeah. So I've had a couple phalloplasties for consultations. I have not done the procedure yet. Okay. So it's pretty new in my area locally.
Same here.
For a long time we were, you know, if somebody called the office, I know at OSU, they were being sent to places that did the procedures, and California has a big population out there for physicians that are experts in the area. Okay. So it's kind of new in my area. So I'm starting to get consults. So it's a great, the bottom surgery, especially when you think about what that surgery entails. Like, they essentially do a radial forearm free flap, kind of like with the deep flaps when they move the belly up onto the breast area. They're completely moving tissue around and reforming it in whole new body parts with new blood supplies and stuff. So it's intricate and it's amazing. It's very, very, very hard surgery.
I medically researched this because I can't mentally get my mind around how they do this. And I'm not from a medical background like yourself. So I am very blown away at the ability of these surgeons to make this happen. It's just incredible.
And how they look now, like compared to when I worked in oncology in like the early 2000s, I worked on a surgical unit that was predominantly gynecological cancer, also head and neck cancer, but mostly gynecological. And we did penile reconstructions for penile cancer. Okay. So they would use like a tug flap, like the inner thigh, the gracilis flap, and mold it. But it was really aesthetically not good. They had a lot of heavy dependent weight. They tended to have a bell shape to them. They didn't do any of these refining procedures. So it's amazing. The 2 that I saw come in for the consultations with me, I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, this is super different compared to what I saw before on the floor. So
yeah, you're like, and the technology has swung over to the other side.
It has skyrocketed big time.
Christina, what is your advice to experienced PMUs wanting to get into paramedical areola tattooing?
Yeah, I would say, really seek out a trainer that you trust, right? Make sure that you look at her program. And I checked out what you were doing with you have 4 steps, yes? 2. Right? Yeah. So, and also ongoing help. So when somebody finishes their program, you can reach out to Jody. Like for instance, I reached out to TJ after I trained with her. I trained with Stacey Ray Weir. I would ask her questions. Yeah. Whoever you train with, they're going to be available to you, right, for ongoing, because this is such a specialized area that you can't just learn it all and think that you know it all and not have additional ongoing help, because you're going to have cases walk in your door that you're going to need somebody to kind of help you work through. Yeah. That would be a big one. Also, learn as much as you can about the different types of breast reconstruction. Like I said, I'm kind of strange because I came from that background. So for me, I already knew it. But I think to myself, for somebody that, is a great tattooer, but they don't know about the reconstruction part, probably take some time to really learn about what surgeries your client has gone through, so you have a little bit of perspective for her experiences and what you're working on, right? Like implants used to only be prepectoral, like underneath the pec. Now a lot of doctors in my area are doing or a subpectoral. Now they're doing prepectoral on top. So the skin is thinner. Those ladies also, in my experience, have more sensation, right? Versus the subpec ladies.
Yeah.
So just to know, what's underneath of there is,
and
that, I think that's also good.
The details of like, was the skin radiated? Just the medical terminologies, because if a woman's been through that, she's going to know all that lingo. And if you are speaking to her and you're not understanding her verbiage, it's just there. That confidence level has, really taken a deep dive. So
absolutely.
And
knowing the risks too, right? Yeah. The risk with radiated tissue is astronomical compared to not radiated tissue. And not just with like color take and things like that, but, radiated tissue is very hard to heal. So if you are too rough with that skin, if you are too heavy handed, if you go over a scar, if you create a wound, that wound may not heal. Like it can take a very, very long time for the radiated skin to heal. And those implants on that side are usually kind of taut, high, tight.
Yeah.
So
different from side to side. I think a really comprehensive training is definitely something that needs to be there, from, just your basic cosmetic type augmentation all the way to, double mastectomy, necrotic skin, like all the things, right? You want to be aware of all of those things. So in saying that, Christina, thank you so much for coming on and sharing the emotional side of this, talking about your amazing nickname, the Nipple Fairy. And really,
my kids are so ashamed.
Educating and encouraging PMUs to get into this amazing field. And for anybody who did tune in and is looking to join Christina and I on the amazing other side of the paramedical tattoo world, I'd love to offer a discount code for my Areola online training called Areolas Uncomplicated. And the discount code will be Nipple Fairy 10.
I love you. That is so awesome.
Oh, well, I am just so delighted that you and I had a chance to do this. And I think sharing our passion, our art, educating people, and just getting more of these survivors in the headspace that they have the choice. And that, we can make something, just like your philosophy says, that seems broken into something magical and new again.
And this is such a great service to provide too, right? Like there's the reward that these girls, once they take your class, like when they lay their hands on that patient, or I call patient because my nursing, but their client, when they lay their hands on them, it's such a trust. That person's putting all this trust in you, right? And it's such an exchange. It's such a beautiful thing. And you will get no greater reward. You will not.
100%
you just will not.
Agree. I get so like passionate and emotional about this because I want people to experience and be able to talk and share these same even feelings that we have kind of a hard time quantifying with other people, so that they can experience it, but mostly share it with people who are so deserving of great artwork and the ability to heal with tattoos. So thank you so much, Christina. It was just absolutely a joy to have you on this Instagram Live. And I hope...
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh my God, my pleasure. And I hope everyone who tuned in got a lot of great information.
Yay.
All right, take care, my friend. And thank you to everybody again. Have a great Monday.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.